In this second video for the final exam review, we're going to talk about creating an amortization schedule. This is going to tell us exactly how much every period we have. We're doing a monthly loan, so every monthly payment, how much goes to principal, how much goes to interest, and what is our current ending balance. So we have a loan amount. So a loan amount of $5,000, a monthly payment of $222.17, an annual interest rate of 6.25%, and we're going to pay this loan off in 2 years, 24 months. I've already calculated this. The monthly payment was calculated with a formula or a function. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up this amortization schedule. And what that's going to do is if we kind of scroll down a little bit, you're going to see how much goes to each payment or each period, or actually this payment period. So the first thing, and one thing you want to be very careful of, especially as we work with the principal payment and the interest payment, that it's very important to work with absolute values as needed. So the beginning balance is just going to be our starting balance. It'll be equal B5. Not necessary to have this be absolute. It's just going to be used once. So the principal payment, we're going to use the P payment function, and then we're going to use the I payment function to calculate interest. Make sure you get those in the right box. So in this one, it's going to be equal PPMT, and you can see all the arguments, and we have the rate. PER is the actual period, and then the NPR is the total number of periods of the loan, and then present value. It actually does calculate the monthly payment as part of the function. So the rate will be B7 absolute divided by 12. The period is just going to be A13. We don't need that to be absolute because as we copy this down, we want the row numbers to change. The number of periods will be B8 absolute, and the present value, again, we want to make it negative, will be B5 absolute. If you forget to make things absolute, when you copy them down, the numbers will be totally wrong, and you'll start getting, not necessarily errors right away, but you'll get some really strange values. So if I just tab over, so the first payment of $222.17, $196.13 went to principal. So now we want to calculate the amount that went to interest. So equal, and this time we're going to use the I PMT. So remember I for interest, the previous one we did P for principal. And the function has the same arguments. So we have B7, make it absolute, divide by 12. The actual period is A13. When I don't use this function very often, I flip the number of periods and the period. I don't know why they did that. It would be kind of nice if they put it in the same order that we're familiar with. So the NPR is the number of periods, which is B8 absolute. And then the present value again is the negative B5 and make it absolute. The other two arguments, the future value and the type are optional. And then we'll just tab over. And so $26.24. So if we just kind of select both of these, and if we look down in our status line at the very bottom, if you just take column E and just go all the way down to the bottom off the scroll bar, you'll see that 227.17. These should always add up to the monthly payment. Might be off a penny depending on how things were rounded. When I actually had this, if I did not expand or increase the decimal, it was $222, so it doesn't quite match up right. So that's why I increased it by two decimal places. Now the ending balance, this is going to be our beginning balance minus the amount that went to principal, and that's all we're subtracting, and we'll just hit enter. And so now after that first payment, basically we owe $4,803.87. Now the only thing we have to do differently for the second period is we need to change what our beginning balance is. So that'll be in B14, that is going to equal E13. And we don't want that to be absolute because as we copy this down, we want that row number to change. And everything else will be the same. So I'm going to select those three and just bring it down one. So you can see for the next period, a little bit more goes to principal and a little bit less goes to interest, which is normal. So I'm going to scooch this out so you can see the full amount. So we're going to select those 4 cells. And then I'm going to copy it down, autofill it down. And it should go to 0 or very close to 0, depending on rounding, but these should go to 0. Now, if you were interested, you could do some extra information and find out how much we paid. $5,000. That does make sense because we took out a $5,000 loan, and we did pay $322 in interest throughout the course. So if we just sort of center that, and then just to see what the cost of the loan is, we can add these two together. So the loan was worth or cost us, with borrowing the $5,000 and paying the interest, $5,332. So that is working with the amortization schedule. The big thing to remember when working with this is to make sure that you have the correct formula for principal payment and the interest payment. Sometimes they'll flip these, so you want to make sure you're using the right one. And again, just to review real quick, let me zoom in a little bit here. If I double click, you will see that for the principal payment, we use PPMT. So think of principal payment. And then for interest, it was I for interest payment. So that's just a little mnemonic you can remember to set that up. So that is creating an amortization chart